ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਜਬ ਜਰੀਐ ਤਬ ਹੋਏ ਭਸਮ ਤਨ, ਰਹਿ ਕਿਰਮ ਦਲ ਖਾਈ। ਕਾਚੀ ਗਾਗਰ ਨੀਰ ਪਰਤ ਹੈ, या तन की अह बड़ाई। काहे भैया फिर तो फूलिया फूलिया, जब 10 मास उर्द मुख रहता, 100 दिन कैसे भूलिया रहाओ। जो मद माखी त्योस ठोर रस, जोर जोर धन किया। मरती बार ले हो करिया, भूत रहन क्यों दिया। देहोरी लो बरी नार संग भई, आगे सज्जन सहेला। मर घट लो सब लोग कुटुंब भयो, आगे हंस अकेला। कहत कबीर सुनो रे प्राणी, परे काल ग्रस कुआ। झूठी माया आप बंधाया, जो नलनी भ्रम सुआ। कहत कबीर सुनो रे प्राणी, परे काल ग्रस कुआ। झूठी माया आप बंधाया, जो नलनी भ्रम सुआ। वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह। संगत जी, today's पावन पवित्र हुक्मनामा साहिब from Sachkhand Sri Harmandir Sahib has been blessed to us by Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji on Ang 654 by Bhagat Kabir Ji. In this Shabad, Bhagat Kabir Ji is reminding us that we all one day are going to become that dust. This body is not going to remain, and this body is temporary. And why Bhagat Kabir Ji is reminding us of this is because many of us put that on the back burner and forget that time's going to actually come, and we end up wasting, and we end up living our life filled with pride, not realizing that pride, living in pride, is actually self-destruction, not realizing that we're missing out on the essence of life. So let us embrace these words of Bhagat Kabir Ji. Jab jariya तब होए भस्म तन, जब जरिया. They're saying that when this body is burnt, तब होए भस्म तन. This is then tan meaning body. This is what will happen to this body. होए भस्म. भस्म Sangat Ji means ash. That this body will become ash if it is burnt. And they said those that aren't burnt, that are buried, what will happen to them? Kende raha kirama. Raha means those that remain, meaning those bodies that are buried. Raha kiram. Kiram Sangat Ji means these insects. Kende raha kiram dal khai. Dal means an army. If the body is buried, then an army of worms will come and eat this body away, meaning no matter what, this body will not remain intact. फिर कहन लगे कहते काची गागर. काची गागर Sangat Ji is referring to a pitcher, or we can call it a water carrier that is kachi, that is made out of clay. कहते काची गागर नीर परत है. कहते if you've got a gagar, if you've got this pitcher that isn't baked fully, that is half baked, and then you have water in that pitcher, how long is that going to remain? How long is that gagar, that pitcher, that water carrier that is made out of clay, ਉਹ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਸਮਾਂ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਰਹਿ ਸਕੇਗੀ? ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਭਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੀ. We all know that it cannot remain for long, because eventually that water will start to break down that clay. That water will eventually start to seep through that clay. As it starts to seep through, and then that clay pot starts to actually break down, and eventually there's nothing left of that. In the same way, Bhagat Kabir Ji is reminding us, kende kachi gagar, this body, in that same way, this body, Sangat Ji, ke ek o chin, in every moment, this, our life is getting closer to death. This body is getting closer to breaking. This body is actually giving itself away to death with every breath. And that's why we read this, remind ourselves this. Sohila Sahib di Bani is all about this. Old kata, old Sangat Ji means our age is reducing. We see it in a way that it's increasing, but actually Bhagat Ji is saying flip it around and look at it in the way that, think about life in this way of this body. Think of life in this way of this body, that here is death and I am traveling like this. So don't look at your life to be increasing, but look at your life to be decreasing. That's actually getting closer to coming to an end. Again, the old means age. Sometimes, often we'll see that some people are afraid to actually share their age. Some people will say that it's rude to ask one's age, and often we'll see that more in one particular gender. And for whatever reason that is, we've now made this the norm of society to say it's rude to ask a certain gender's age. But asal vich Paatshah Ji is saying, can they remain living? Why is that? The truth is, behind all of that is that when somebody doesn't want to share their age as they're getting older, it's because they know that they are getting closer to death. Oud kata dinas ranare. Oud Sangat Ji's age, kata is reducing. Oud kata dinas, the day of life. Dinas ranare is getting close, is turning into the night of death, meaning into old age. It's getting closer and closer to that time. And over here, Bhagat Kabir Ji is reminding us that kachi gagar neer parat hai. Just like that water will start to seep through that unbaked, that clay pot, and in the same way, our breaths are leaving one by one from this body, and we are getting closer and closer for this body to break. Ea tan ki eh badai. Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, Ea tan ki, this body ki eh badai. Is that it? Is that the greatness of this body? That's how delicate it is. That kaha bisasa is a pande ka itna lage thanka. Paatshah is saying that what faith can you place within this kachi gagar, within this body that's made out of clay? That little flicker and it's gone. We don't know what that reason is going to be for us. Somebody it will be a disease, for somebody it will be an accident, whatever it be. Then Bhagat Kabir Ji say, kahe paiya firta fulya. Sangat Ji means fulya, means somebody that is the word that's used within the English translation is puffed up. Or we can say, we don't use that word, we more so use the word pumped. When somebody is pumped in pride. And what is pride? Often we forget about how temporary this body is, and over this body, many of us, we're going around this in this world, fulle hoye, in this pumped in this pride. Sangat Ji, remember pride. What is pride? Pride is like being in a constant race in life. How tiring is that? If we think about that psychologically, how that can be so draining to live in that way. Because pride is when we're actually looking at others and comparing ourselves to others. And that can only come when we live in that duality, when we don't live in that wholeness, in that oneness, when we're not living holistically, when we're actually seeing others to be a competition. Living in that pride is when we see others to be ahead of us and we're in this race. We don't want them to remain there. We want to actually get ahead of them. And then those that we see, we perceive to be behind us. We want them to remain there. We don't want them to actually catch up with us. We want to continue to look down at somebody else. And that's what ahankar is. That's what pride is. And that's what many of us, we actually, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਫੁੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ. When we see ourselves to be at a certain position, and we see somebody else to be at a lower position, no matter what field of work that could be in, that could be even in a religious setup, that could be in the field I'm in as a speaker, as somebody doing katha, not wanting somebody else to catch up, being more known, or whichever way you want to look at it. And that is that being fulla hoya in that pride. He's thinking, having that pride, dekho, look how much I've got. Look how much people I attract. Look how much following I've got in comparison to. And then look at this. Look at my house in comparison to such and such. And Sangat Ji, this is what it means to live in that pride. But Sadhguru Ji, Sache Paatsh Ji saying to us, how is it that we are to live so that we can have sukh? I was watching a video yesterday, and in that video, that they didn't make a reference to Gurbani, it was two Gursikhs, and they were sitting there and saying that actually, that do you know that Guru Sahib Ji, Guru Maharaj even referred to Chinta as living in this worry and stress about everything. It's actually a paap. So I'm not saying that there's not a pangati like that it's actually a sin. To worry when we've got this crater to take care of everything that is worrying, that means we have no faith in that crater. Sangat Ji, when we look at the word paap, or when we look at the word sin, and I thought about that deeply afterwards, and I thought, paap hai ki? Asal vich, what is a sin? Sin is something that pehli gal, first thing is, these are just words, yes, that Guru Sahib Ji have used, paap, sin, but a sin is actually Guru Sahib Ji saying to us, if you carry out this action, in which way? Because when we think paap, when we think sin, we think punishment. We think paap, we think dand. So what is the punishment then for that sin? The punishment is when we bring dukh upon ourselves. We bring pain to ourselves before we bring pain upon anybody else from our action. First of all, it's actually destroying us. So let's look at it that way, because that karta, that Vaheguru Ji, if that Vaheguru Ji is all loving and all compassionate, je Vaheguru Ji prem de roop ne, jiਵੇਂ Guru Gobind Singh Ji Sache Paatsh ne apna dasna ਕੀਤਾ ਨਾ, ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਤਰ ਤਤਰ ਦਿਸਾ ਵਿਸਾ hoye phalyo anurag. They said in all directions, they said wherever I look, wherever I see that embodiment of love everywhere. Ek paase apa kahiye कि ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਦੀ ਮੂਰਤੀ ਹੈ. In one sense, if we say that Vaheguru Ji is love, in the other side we're saying to Vaheguru Ji that you are that sukhanda sagar, you are the ocean of sukh, you the ocean of bringing happiness to our life. And then we're saying, Vaheguru Ji, you are the one that is diyalu, that is forever compassionate to us. And then on the other side, we're saying that we're making people feel bad for then being stressed, for having anxiety, and saying that actually, do you know that it's a paap, it's a sin? Asal vich je ਆਪਾਂ ਉਸ Vaheguru Ji ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝੀਏ, ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿਆਰੋ, ਇੰਜ ਨਹੀਂ. It's not a sin in that sense that he's ready to then punish us from that. It's a sin in that way that it's going to bring grief to ourselves. It's going to pain us when we indulge in that particular action. So it's a paap in that way. And in that same way, when we're in that race of living in pride, in wanting to remain above others and seeing them to remain behind us and look down at them so I can maintain my position. How is that a paap? In which way? That is a paap in the sense of that it's going to bring pain to us, because what a way to live. Constantly having to live in that fear. Living in that fear of thinking that I don't want this person to get ahead of me and having to maintain that. But instead, Satguru Ji ne ta sanu kya siga ke bachyo rasta asal vich sukh tak apnan vaste, sukh tak pahunchਣ vaste, ਉਸ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੋਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹ ਰਸਤਾ ਕੀ ਸੀਗਾ? ਉਹ ਰਸਤਾ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਆ ਹੈ, ਹਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੰਗੇ ਬੁਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਏ, ਪ੍ਰਣਵਤ ਨਾਨਕ ਤਾਰ ਹੈ ਸੋਏ। ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਸਤਾ ਤਾਂ ਆ ਸੀ ਨਾ। ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ said actually the path was this, that ਹਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੰਗੇ, that no, I'm not saying that I am so great, I'm not saying I am so good, because hum nahi change, I'm saying that I'm not good. Bura nahi koi, that nobody else is bad. And today we will say that, isn't that being negative? And today we'll say that, what about self-love? And today we'll say that, what about these new terms that are being thrown around? Or what about loving yourself and not being negative? And no, Sangat Ji, it doesn't mean that. When we say hum nahi change, when we say that I'm not good, bura nahi koi, that nobody else is bad, what am I actually saying? I'm saying that I don't see myself to be above somebody else. I don't see myself, I'm not basically living my life in pride. I'm not living my life in this race against others, because there is no other for me, because we are all one. Because asal vich manas ki jaat eke pehchan bo, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paatshah Ji's beautiful lines. This is manas ki jaat. They said this jaat, this jaat is this group. Can they know this group of humanity? Manis ki jaat eke pehchan bo. Recognize them to be all one. Eke, all of them to be one. It doesn't matter what color you are wearing. It doesn't matter what clothes you are wearing, but we are all one. And when I live like that, Hamane Change, what I'm actually saying is, I don't see myself to be above you. Actually, we are all one. Pranav Nanak Tare His way. They're saying in this way we'll be saved. And then Bhagat Kabir Ji, they're saying that sometimes we have so much pride about our family. We're constantly pumping the lives that we have in comparison to others. But they're saying that, remember, don't ever forget these things. They're saying, Jab das maas urd mukh rehta. They're saying when you was jab, when das means 10, maas Sangat Ji means months. This is, don't forget, this is Jab das maas urd mukh. This is when you was upside down in your mother's womb for 10 months. संगत जी आज हम थोड़ी जी काली पै गई बच्चों ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ थोड़ी जी ਛੇਤੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੇ 9 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਤੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਗਈ ਆ so now that's often we know that's come down to about 9 months so but it was normal then for it to be about 10 months a child would be in their mother's womb before they were born and the jab 10 maas urd mukh the face is down ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹਿਤਾ 100 ਦਿਨ ਕੈਸੇ ਭੁੱਲੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ how have you forgotten that day. Today you want to keep your head up above everybody else and you want to be looking down at them. They said, but remember there was such a day that your head was down in your mother's womb, and when you came into this world you came with your head down, meaning that our life is to live in this way with our head in the feet of all, that we live with our head being at the feet of all. And that's why Sache Paat Ji said, this is that ho sabna ki renuka ta ao hamare paas. They said when you become the dust of all, then you come to me. That's what Vaheguru Ji is saying to us. So then Bhagat Kabir Ji say, can they really contemplate this? Take this deeply inside of your heart. Today we want to be bigger and better than everybody else. We want to have the most followers, the most likes. But this path was about remembering that time of when our head was low in the mother's womb, meaning to live in that nimrata, to live in that humility. Jo mad makhi tyo sathor ras. Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, you've wasted and lived your life in this way. This is just like that bee. It collects the honey. It continues to collect that honey. Jo mad makhi, that honey bee. Tyo sathor ras, Sangat Ji. And this is in that way, the way it is collecting and accumulating that ras, that honey, is saying in that same way, somebody that is sator, even though sator you'll see that it's translated to food, but a sator actually translates to somebody that is very stingy and does not let go of their wealth. And then they say, can they jor, can you keep accumulating, saving tan kiya, this wealth? But ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਸਤਾ ਹੋਰ ਹੀ ਕੁਝ ਦਿਖਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ. ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ showed us a completely different path, and that path that Guru Nanak ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ji showed us is having an open hand, living in that way of letting go and sharing. It's the law of Vaheguru Ji's, it's nature. The more we give in abundance, the more that universal will bring back to us. But it's getting to that place of being able to let go and living a life with this palm open and sharing. That having our doors open to people in whichever way it might be. That might be that you share your time with somebody in helping them. That may be that you share your home with somebody. Whatever it might be. But your heart is open to give. When our heart opens to become of a giving nature, then I tell you what, then Vaheguru Ji won't hold back, because everything comes back in abundance. But that's not what we do it for. That's not what the intention is. But that's just the way it works. It just works that way, Sangat Ji. And if we actually do it in that way, that's saying that I'm going to give, and I'm going to give because I want something back, then that isn't living in hukamnaama, meaning living desireless for that action. Then it doesn't become selfless. And then in that way, that game of Vaheguru Ji doesn't actually play out and work. Satguru Ji Garib Nawaz Sache Paatshah Ji, then they say to us, Kande Marti Bar Leo Kariya. Those same people that we held back for. Those same people that were around us and saying that, what about me time? What about us? What about this? What about that? You know, just living in this closed little box. And those same people, when we die, what happens is, the moment of death comes, leho. Those same people that were saying, no, spend more time with me. No, let's do this. And not actually living a life of serving others. And then those same very people are saying, look, take this dead body away. This is why are we going to remain a ghost lingering around in our home? Because they had that fear that if somebody has just died, that then that inner sukham sarir, that mind body, that then travels and goes on, is going to be lingering around their body until the body isn't taken. Then that ghost body isn't going to leave this home as well. So they'd have that fear, and they would actually say that why are we going to let this poot remain in our house? Or Sangat Ji, in Gurbani, the word poot has been translated for body as well. Dehri lo bari nar sang pai. And then Sangat Ji, but that same wife that we've lived with, that partner that one has lived with for how many ever years, they're saying, but when their partner dies, how far can they go with you? You've now gone off on your journey, you've left your body, and that as far as they can go with your body is up to that threshold of the door, so they can go up to that particular point, and that's it. And then they say that aage sajjan suhela, and then they continue to the cremation ground, then your friends and relatives go with you. Markat Sangat Ji means cremation ground. Kende markat lao sab log kutamb peo. Kende then up to the cremation ground, who goes with you? Kende sab log, all the people, the surrounding villages. Kutamb, your family peo. Aage Hans akela. But this Hans Sangat Ji, this soul that is inside of this body, that journey of that soul continues on its own. Nobody else can assist them and go with them from this world. Kahat Kabir suno re prani. Then Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, can they listen? Listen, O prani, O those that have breath inside of them still. Can they pare kal gras kuwa? Can they, whilst you're living, you are still in that dark well of death, meaning that we're constantly fearing, living in the fear of death. Jhoothi maya aap bandaya. Bhagat Kabir Ji saying that Jhoothi maya, this illusionary world that is jhoothi, that is false, meaning that is temporary. Kande aap bandaya, that Vaheguru Ji game is that they have trapped us within it themselves, so that we can play the game of escaping it and realizing the truth whilst being within this maya. Can they just like in the jo nalani pram suwa? Can they just like that nalani? Just maaf karna, just like that suwa, the parrot that gets trapped in the nalani. Nalani Sangat Ji was this trap that was made to trap the suwa, the parrot. The parrot would go in there because it agreed to grab some food, but then it could not actually let go and move from that place. Otherwise, that trap would become its death. So Sangat Ji is saying in that same way, Vaheguru Ji has created this trap of Maya for us to escape. But for myself personally, Sangat Ji, I can only share, we can only really share that how we interpret something and our reflection upon something. And for me, reflecting on that Shabad is Bhagat Kabir Ji is awakening us, enlightening us, and saying that wake up and think about the way you are living. You know, get out of that race that you are in, of continuing to live in that pride, wanting to be the biggest and whatever. There's nothing wrong striving in this life and achieving something great. But achieving something great through the lens of the Guru is where we humble ourselves to serve this creation, not to look down at others and be in a race. There is no race because there is no other. There is only but one human race. Maaf karna, human, not race as in the race as in human race. So Sangat Ji, let us do ardas to Sadhguru Ji Pacha Ji to take us out of that race that we are in, and we can humble ourselves before others to serve them. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.